we're going to talk about the Second Amendment, and we're going to play, again, this is Charlie Kirk in his own words. I'm not making any value judgment on it. I'll let you decide. Here's Charlie Kirk on the Second Amendment.
I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. Nobody talks like this. They live in a complete alternate universe. Sure. So then how do you reduce? Very simple. People say, oh, Charlie, how do you stop school shootings? I don't know. How did we stop shootings at base?
Pastor, what do you say to that?
Dr. King did not carry firearms. And this was one of the things that he was criticized by. He did have security with him at times. But it is sad when we talk about this idea of gun violence here in America, and that gun violence was the very thing that took him out. And this is the tension, I think, that so many of us stand in today, and that I stand in, that there were many things that we see that were clearly said that actually perpetuated this death today. That again is not it's not a win for the left. It's not a win for America, but it is a clarion call and a time to wake up to say something truly does need to be done about gun violence in this country today, or we will continue to see not just school shootings, but shootings of our politicians that choose to exercise even what some may consider as radical views. It is just truly sad. It's truly sad.
Charlie Kirk speaking now about an African-American holiday in this country to celebrate slaves being freed, Juneteenth. Here he is.
Hey, everybody. A lot of people are going to be saying happy Juneteenth. It should not be a federal holiday, and I'm on my way to work. Have a good day.
There are different types of microaggression. There's micro assaults. Those can be like explicit but subtle actions.
Larger than that, Charlie.
I live like a capitalist every single day, Shank. I live as a capitalist, okay? I live when I believe.
Those micro insults.
About 2/3 of all black youth will be raised without a stable father around. And I know it's crazy, right?
Micro invalidations.
Say what? Say the word.
The N-word. I'm not going to say it on this public platform, but people say it to me all the time.
It derogatorily.
Yes.
No, I think you're lying.
Dismissals of the other. And it often negates the experiences of marginalized individuals.
Jolly?
I mean, again, I want to repeat what I said before. We know who Charlie Kirk is. Donald Trump and those on the right can do what they do best, and that is attempt to rewrite history right in front of our face. This isn't the first time they've done it. They do it over and over and over again. They don't pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. They're trying to paint Charlie Kirk as, and you heard Trump in his speech he gave, this is a Christian man. He's at peace with his maker now. This is just appealing to Christian nationalism is what it's doing. Charlie Kirk was a hate-filled man. Again, I can simultaneously tell you he's a hateful man and condemn the violence that killed him. And to the pastor's point, you said, when will we wake up? I want to remind everyone that this country did not wake up when over 20 kids were killed at Sandy Hook Elementary, when kids were murdered in mass in Uvalde, Texas, while 300 police officers stood outside using the hand sanitizer. This country hasn't woken up when kids die daily in school. And while I wish this country would wake up to the reality of gun violence, but it's not exactly breaking fucking news. Listen, the only people that need to wake the fuck up is the right. The same people that are saying that this is being incited violence by everyone else are the ones that protect the guns. We've been screaming, protect children, not guns, for how many years? Listen, I condemn this violence. This is not the answer. I'm a nonviolent, civil disobedient type of guy. I'm a veteran. I've seen what violence becomes, and I don't wish it on anyone. And I've spoken for peace for many years now. I'm well documented in that regard. This should never have happened. But let's quit pretending like now the right's going to wake up to the reality of gun violence. No, the right has already made their position clear. Their position is Charlie Kirk's a martyr, and the radical left did it. This is not true. And they're painting this, picture of Charlie that's not true. So once again, we're in misinformation, disinformation, propaganda campaign from the right. That's what we need to address. What do we do about that?
And remember, Jolly, I never tell you what to do, but remember, we have a pastor in our presence.
What I do?
You said the F word about 8 times. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say one thing. Fred Hampton said profane times call profane language. So I do apologize, but I believe that this is a very profane time, and I need to use the accurate language to describe it.
Thank you, Jolly. Now, speaking of the bigotry and the racism, this is Charlie Kirk on some of the most high-profile and accomplished people of color, Black people in this country, if not the world. Here he is.
Yeah, that's the point, Simone Biles. You're representing your nation, you're selfish sociopath. I just said she's probably the greatest gymnast of all time. She's also very selfish, she's immature, and she is a shame to the country.
LeBron James is a self-interested, narcissistic, and we know he's not very smart. LeBron James chronically cheats on his wife, obviously. He's an NBA player.
Because of DEI, it begs the question when you see a black pilot, you wonder, you say, I hope they are qualified. If I'm dealing with somebody in customer service who's a moronic black woman, I wonder, is she there because of her excellence, or is she there because of affirmative action? It almost creates thought patterns that are not necessarily wholesome. Black America was getting richer, they were getting stronger, and families were largely still put together before the Great Society, Voting Rights Act, and Civil Rights Act. 60 years later, Black America is in a worse position. I'm not saying it's because of the Civil Rights Act, I'm not saying it's because of the Voting Rights Act, but somewhere something went awry. I can name at least a dozen people more deserving in the 20th century of a federal holiday than MLK. The reason we talk about race so much is because we have a federal holiday to a guy that talked about race all the time. We celebrate the Civil Rights Act more than the American founding.
We should not be laughing, but it is now you understand. I think people understand why there are why I shouldn't say those of us, why there are people, Americans, and I spoke to an African-American gentleman last night on the street, and I'm going to play that for you in just a moment, but why people are conflicted about this. Again, not that they're happy that the man what happened to the man, but they have trouble understanding why the president is in the Oval Office giving a speech about him, why he is ordering flags to be lowered at half staff and then half mast on ships. Why is he doing that for someone who has spouted these kinds of beliefs? Go on, Pastor.
Don, I'm trying to keep it together, to be honest. I think as a Black American in this country, my father is 88, so he from the country, backwoods country, Georgia. When he walked to school, he had white kids spitting on him as he was headed to school. When Obama was elected the first time, he was bawling in in our home, because he just never thought he would see the day that would happen in America. And so the pain that so many of us feel, even that I feel, I'm trying to even keep tears back hearing some of these statements. I think you coined it. It is conflicting, because one of the things we want to make sure we don't become is the very thing that we say
fight against.
Yes. Yeah. And that is what led to this today. We don't know the shooter, but what led to this is that we allowed our hatred of certain statements in free speech to lead to violence. And so we want to be clear, as a pastor, I have to challenge us to not let the evil or the negativity or the pain we feel by some of these statements go so deep in our hearts that it comes out in action. And that is the issue here. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge the pain, and I'll just say this, ignorance of those statements. And while it's a very tough place to be here in America today. I'll stop there before I start crying, because the death and also the statements are, I didn't know you were going to do this. So amen.
This is Charlie Kirk talking about attacking our Black Supreme Court justice and one of our most high-profile Black journalists who happens to be a friend of mine. Here it is.
Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called the racist. But now they're coming out and they're saying it for us. They're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Play cut 52.
But I rise today as a clear recipient of affirmative action, particularly in higher education. I may have been admitted on affirmative action, both in terms of being a woman and a woman of color, but I can declare that I did not graduate on affirmative action. This is my personal story.
I hear because of action affirmative. She can't even say that. We know. It's very obvious to us that you were not smart enough to be able to get in on your own. I couldn't make it on my own, so I needed to take opportunities from someone more deserving. You know, this is how arrogant Joy Reid and Ketanji Brown Jackson and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee are. They're so narcissistic, they think this is persuasive. They think we're like, oh, of course. That's why we need affirmative action, because you have impressed us with your brilliance. Of course. Oh no, imagine the world without Joy Reid. Imagine the world without Sheila Jackson Lee or Michelle Obama or Ketanji Brown Jackson. They think this is persuasive. They think as they kind of now reveal that I'm only here because of anti-white, anti-Asian forced discrimination policies. That turned me into a bitter, resentful activist that hates white people, honestly, through our politics.
Jolly, you can't contain yourself. Hard.
I definitely cannot. Let me first talk about how Charlie Kirk did not complete college. Charlie Kirk dropped out of college. Charlie Kirk wasn't the one that wasn't smart enough to complete college. And he's addressing black women who, which, by the way, is the single highest educated demographic in America. So black women specifically are the highest educated demographic in America. So how ironic that a guy who couldn't complete college is attacking the highest educated demographic in America. Why? Because he's jealous. Because he couldn't do what these black women could do. He couldn't accomplish a fucking third of what they accomplished. So he's on here, trash talking them. This is what mediocre white men have done historically. When we see Donald Trump in the White House right now talking about how he's a martyr and he's a good guy, this is what white supremacy has done historically. Let's erase the black leadership in this country and let's elevate the white leaders. Our history books are nothing more than a romantic fiction novel where all the heroes just so happen to be white. That's America. This is America. What we're watching happen in real time is America. And you know why? Because we've never held white supremacy accountable in this country. That's who Charlie Kirk is. Charlie Kirk is a result of unfettered white supremacy and the unmitigated caucasity of mediocre white men.
Pastor, when you hear someone, and you heard Jolly's words, when you hear someone like Charlie Kirk say that about Ketanji Brown Jackson is brilliant. Joy Reid is as smart as a whip. I mean, she is one of the most knowledgeable people, even the highest rated, one of the highest rated TV anchors in the world. Rachel Maddow says, you know what? I'm going to miss Joy Reid because I learned something from her every single day. And Rachel Maddow is a Rhodes Scholar. I know Joy Reid. I'm telling you, Joy Reid is fucking brilliant. I'm sorry, Pastor. Sorry. It's brilliant. But, and for him to make these judgments about black women, Sheila Jackson Lee, who sadly is no longer with us, was an iconic congresswoman and a hero in the black community. When, as a black man, when you hear that, how does that make you feel? What do you think of that?
Yeah, again, as the pastor on the show, I want to be clear to bring honor to the dead. However, one of the things I also want to say here, it speaks to a greater, and Jolly actually coined it, a greater condition of desperation for many of our white brothers and sisters that hold themselves to a certain level of conservative ideals. When you get to the point in which you feel as if your words are not working, you tend to go to extremes. When things are able to be picked apart, racist things and all of these things, you go to an act of desperation in which name calling begins, and this is why I encourage us not to become the thing we hate. This is the thing we have to be mindful of in this time, that we do not become what it is that we're looking at. And that happens when we go down a road of no empathy, of no understanding, of ignorance, all of these different things. But it is, and I just say it again, it is just truly ignorant, and it speaks to the condition of our country when we have our white brothers and sisters that refuse to engage. I'm not talking about all. Obviously, Jolly is here. Not all, but there are many that refuse to engage in conversations about equity and inclusion and diversity and racism. When they refuse to do it, what happens over time, it becomes politicized and it turns into something that is irrational.
Yeah. Pastor, I agree. Look, and as I said, this is a tightrope that we're walking because, as you said, we want to honor the dead. But I think it's important because a lot of people asked me yesterday on the street, they said, Don, you know, I've been seeing people like making this guy out to be Mother Teresa. I don't agree with him at all. I don't think he should be killed. I don't think that someone should shoot him. I don't think that he should die for his political beliefs or just his beliefs in general. But can you and the media, and I'm not saying that I did it, please not make this guy out to be the second coming of Christ, because he was not.
Yeah, it speaks to, and I'm sorry, it speaks to the idea of two gospels in America. This is how we have two political parties that believe in the same Jesus, yet vote in different ways, and yet spur different things of hatred and so on and so forth. We're not looking at the same Christ, and I think that's one of the things that we are seeing today.
We are. I'm a journalist. You're an influencer, but we believe in truth and facts. And so while we're not here to say we're happy that Charlie Kirk is dead, no, but we are here to show you who Charlie Kirk was and whether it was appropriate for the president of the United States to sit in the Oval Office and say that he's going to, he ordered flags at half staff, and now saying that he's going to give him posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And folks are crying for empathy. Folks are saying, have some empathy for Charlie Kirk and for his family. This is what Charlie Kirk, again, this is Charlie Kirk in his own words. This is what he said about empathy.
I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage. But
there's a longer one than that. But what do you think? I mean, you're muted, Jolly.
My bad.
His own words come back really to tell you who he is.
This is my point. Okay, you said you're a journalist and I'm an influencer. No, I'm a father. No, I'm a father of 5 children.
Yeah.
I'm a veteran of this country. I'm an American citizen.
Oh, can I ask you? I want you to hold that thought, and you can do it now or later. I want to know how you feel as a veteran with him getting that award. But go on. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no problem. But I just want to say that part of being a father is raising children in a country that seems to not know how to move forward. We keep going backwards. We continue this perpetual cycle of rewriting history, changing facts. The misinformation, disinformation, propaganda machine are just churning out this stuff in real time. And you have all the receipts. You're playing the receipts right here of who Charlie Kirk definitely was. Charlie Kirk, if you watch him, he takes pride in these shock jock tapes that he puts out or put out. And he does that because, he knows that he's going to elicit emotion. Yeah, right. He knows that. He knows he's going to elicit emotional response out of people. He knows what he's saying is hateful and attacks marginalized communities. He knows that and takes pride in that. So any rewriting of that is just another example of how this country cannot seem to hold white supremacy accountable. Like you said, how do I feel as a veteran, him given the Presidential Medal of Freedom? It was already given to Rush Limbaugh. Is there really any value left in such a medal? Once you devalue things like that, is there value left in them? Again, I want to point out, Donald Trump is trying to make him a martyr. He said the word martyr in his little speech, and he's making this out to be a leftist. Don, we don't even know who did it yet. So how are we already talking about? Yeah, so how are we already talking about? And I won't talk to it right now, but how are we already talking about this is a radical left issue? This is number one, a way to try to accelerate violence in this country, because number two, the Epstein files left a crack in MAGA's armor, and they're losing political capital. The American people have been standing up against what's happening. We are taken to the streets. We're protesting and we're speaking out. We're not buying it. This nonviolent civil disobedience has been working across the country. And Donald Trump and all those on the right know that their plan is failing, and that we're not going to sit back and let them rig the 2026 election. We're not going to let them gerrymander. We're going to fight fire with fire and gerrymander in blue states. And all these things are happening, and they're losing their political capital. So this has given them the opportunity to accelerate violence in this country as a way to maintain the power that they feel that they're losing.
Charlie Kirk on white privilege and testosterone.
White privilege is a racist myth that is rooted in bigotry, trying to classify people based on their skin color. If you are a racist, you have something to apologize for. If you're a white person who is not a racist, you have nothing to apologize for.
I do think that there is a direct correlation between someone's testosterone and their politics. I would love to have a study done on this. On young men, the lower their testosterone, the more likely they are to be Democratic.
Well, free speech is our birthright as Americans. When you have free speech, we're going to get closer to the truth, closer to the best way to govern, closer to the best polity for the country. The influence of DEI have actually inverted the piety away from the promise of what MLK said.
So there's no white privilege. Charlie Kirk reminded me a little bit of Candace Owens. Do you know what I mean? Talk fast, but you're like, well, I'm not sure of what you're saying, but just fast talkers.
Well, Candace Owens used to be with Turning Point USA. And so that's their brand. And it's funny that in the beginning of that clip you just played, he said white privilege is just something to classify people by race, which is conveniently overlooking that the white race was created right here in the good old US of A in 1676 after Bacon's Rebellion as a way to prevent poor people from uprising against the rich aristocrats. So they separated poor people by race by convincing white people, which is a race they made up, that you might be poor, but at least you ain't black. So stop joining the black population as a way to uprise against us rich people, because you too can be like us one day if you just work hard. And from 1676 to 1776 to 2025, this very racist ideology in America has continued through that classification of the white race. So this is what I find so ironic about Kirk and all these people. They literally conveniently spin history. Like he brought up affirmative action earlier when attacking black women, while conveniently overlooking the fact that the reason that existed was because they didn't allow black people into universities before that. We conveniently overlooked the reason that it was white people's inability to accept non-white people that required it. So then to spin that and say that it excludes white people is professional level gaslighting.
White is not a race, right? I mean,
that's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, white is not a race. It was something that was invented here in America, yes. And also black is not a race. Both of them are a collective here in the United States of white people. You may be European American, You could be Irish American, you can be Italian American, you can be all kinds of things that people put in this white category. It's just like either you're African American or Jamaican American. Just so you know, I understand these are collectives that I invented here in the United States just to, I guess, to to put people. To define people or put them in a box, and perhaps sometimes to minimize and sometimes to maximize their influence on culture in the country.
No, it was specifically for money, Don.
Yeah.
The poor people were uprising against rich aristocrats when this was still a British colony, when they were colonizing the indigenous lands. And so to keep that from happening, to protect their money, they made this white race concept. And then black people in this country were used as free labor and cheap labor and for capital gain. This is all about greed and white supremacy, and it always has been. And then they spin this, just like Donald Trump's doing right now in real time. They are spinning this like now again it's the white man who's the victim of it all. In reality, once again, we don't even know who did it or what his motivation was.
Well, why don't we get to that, because you mentioned it. Before, I just want one more. On Charlie Kirk, and then we'll talk about we'll get to the we don't even know who it was. This is him on gay schizophrenic Paul Pelosi attacker.
I mean, I'm looking at Politico.com. I'm looking at the New York Times. I'm looking at all these places, and there's a little bit of mention here. For example, Politico says top Republicans reject any link between GOP rhetoric and Paul Pelosi assault. Of course you should reject any link. Why is the Republican Party, why is the conservative movement to blame for gay schizophrenic nudists that are hemp jewelry makers breaking into somebody's home, or maybe not breaking into somebody's home? Why are we to blame for that exactly? And why is he still in jail? Why has he not been bailed out? By the way, if some amazing patriot out there in San Francisco or the Bay Area wants to really be a midterm hero, someone should go and bail this guy out. I bet his bail's like $30,000 or $40,000. Bail him out and then go ask him some questions.
Well, I'll say two things. First of all, to what he just said, why should the GOP be responsible for this? Oh, by the way, go bail him out. Like, which is it, bro? But what I was going to say was, when this type of violence that happened yesterday, when one person takes it in their hands to use violence as an answer, then what happens is the temperature gets turned up in the country and violence becomes, higher. And every single time in America, when that happens, the communities that are most at danger are marginalized communities. People that look like me are less in danger. Here's why. It's exactly what you were just saying a moment ago. And that is that what they do on the right is they paint this picture of what the left is. The left is lesbian, gay, queer, trans. The left is black. The left is brown. If you look like me and you don't know my political ideology, I'm Republican coded. You're going to assume that I'm one of your Republican allies, and I'm in less danger in this heightened, violent environment that was now created by this act of violence. This is why I condemn violence. When we condone violence, when violence becomes the answer and not non-violent civil disobedience and conversation, then all we do is further marginalize and further endanger communities that are already being marginalized by the very white supremacy that created it all. This is my point. So, notice how he said gay, schizophrenic, but these are dog whistles. Hey, this is what the left is. The left is a bunch of gay, trans, black, brown, queer. That's what they do. And if you believe that long enough, then anybody you believe to be in one of those categories is now your enemy. They're making this us versus them thing. And us that they're talking about is cishet white men.
So Republican officials and influencers are trying to say that Democrats have declared war on the right. Now, I just want to give you some facts. The man who targeted and killed Democratic Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman, a Trump supporter. The man who targeted the home of Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro was a Trump supporter. The men who wanted to hang Mike Pence on January 6th, Trump supporters. The man who targeted and killed the son of Obama-appointed District Judge Esther Salas was a Trump supporter. The man who tried to kidnap Nancy Pelosi and assault her husband was a Trump supporter. The men who were convicted trying to kidnap Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Trump supporters. The man who sent pipe bombs to the homes of Obama and Biden, a Trump supporter. There is no equivalent of even a similar list of Obama or Biden supporters who have carried out similar murders, attempted murders, and violent attacks. And this we have just in. Put it up for the folks now. So what it says is between 2013 and 2022, right-wingers committed the vast majority of political murders, 75%. The source is the Anti-Defamation League. Thanks everyone for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members-only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support, and we will see you next time.